Okay, you're all set there, Libby.
Okay, thank you, and Happy New Year again, everybody. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do we have somebody to move and second this motion?
Sure.
Sherry, second.
Second.
Ron. Are there any conflicts of interest on today's agenda items from anybody? So hearing none, we need a motion to approve the minutes of the December 4th meeting of this committee. Moved.
No.
I'll move, Libby.
Shirley. And second. Anybody second? Sherry? Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll defer to Ben to introduce our guest, Chris King. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Chris is our one of our partners that I'm in communication with at least once a week or more, and Chris is the CEO of the Quinte Economic Development Commission, who specializes in investment attraction and servicing all three communities. But he'll give a summary of what all they do. But a huge resource for us in Brighton, and we're happy to have him at our meeting this morning. Thanks, Chris, for being able to pop on.
Right on. Well, thank you, Ben, and we're certainly glad to be here. I think I know pretty much everyone around the table. Megan, I'm not sure if we met or not, but
I don't think we have.
But I'll give you just a quick update on Quinte Economic Development, and then certainly be glad to take any questions as we go forward. With your permission, Madam Chair, I could share a screen with a few slides, if that's okay with you. Yeah, okay. Are you seeing my screen, everyone?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So this is, again, just a background on Quinte Economic Development. So our focus with Quinte Economic Development is fairly narrow and defined. So when you think about economic development, there's a wide spectrum of activities that can be included in economic development. Everything from tourism and agriculture and residential attraction and the whole gamut. Our focus at Quinte Economic Development, as given to us by our member municipalities, is really on the industrial sector and the technology sector. So think about those value-added, wealth-creating sectors where you're maybe making something in this region, you're selling it outside the region and bringing net new dollars into the community that then spin off and impact all those other sectors. And we represent three municipalities, of course: Belleville, the city of Quinte West, and of course the municipality of Brighton. There's 4 staff at Quinte Economic Development, myself. And when you think about our sectors, we do both investment attraction plus retention in those target sectors. So Vicki Bristow Ferguson is our business development officer. So I think she's on the investment attraction side. So think of her as getting out there and talking to new industry, new manufacturers to try and bring them into the region. And then Mike Hewitt is our manufacturing resource center coordinator. So he's on the retention side, looking after industry to help them through issues they face. And then Rachel is, I don't know where a picture went, but Rachel is our administrative assistant. And of course, I'm the CAO. And for those who don't know, we're located at Loyalist College in the Pioneer Building in the Quinte Business Development Center. So like-minded agencies all under one roof. So we're partnered with the Business Development Bank of Canada, obviously the corporate training arm of Loyalist College. We work closely with them on a lot of skills development initiative. RBC's here. We have the Small Business Center, Trenval, and us are all at the Quinte Business Development Center. Just in terms of how it works, so each municipality gets to appoint representatives to our board of directors. So in Brighton's case, they appoint 1 politician and 2 community/business leaders. And in Brighton's case, we have Mayor Ostrander is our politician that's appointed to Quinte Economic Development. And from the business side, you have Jake DeGroot, who we know from Premier Tech Biotechnologies. If you don't know him, a good guy to know, one of Brighton's strong local manufacturers. And then James Kovacs, who's a retired engineer and has a lot of great value to us. There's, again, the mayors of Quinte West and Belleville also on the board, and then a series of other business or community leaders make up our board of directors. And that's who we answer to. So we have a board of directors, and that feeds back into our municipalities. And our funding is based on a per capita model. So it's based on the size of your population, based on the latest Canadian census. We were at $4.11 per capita in 2020, and then we're looking at a proposed 2% increase for 2021. We're still getting that looked after. I should note that we do not charge you the levy on your prison population of the Warkworth Penitentiary, which is actually in the northern part of Brighton. So we don't charge you for the residents up that way as part of our levy. We worked that out with Brighton many years ago. So that's how it works from a funding model. So Brighton has 11,000 something take off. I guess when you take off the prison population, it's just 11,000 population. So times that by $4 and some cents per capita to get your levy. We do a number of things based on kind of research. We do a target market study and strategic plan. We like to do that every 5 years. Have outside consultants come in, work with our community, our municipalities, industry leaders, and then also outside folks to make sure we're on track in terms of what subsectors we're targeting. I'll tell you a little bit more about those in a minute. So we have that work every 5 years. We do a detailed analysis, which then translates into our annual business plan and budget, that type of thing. Our leads are managed in our CRM system. So we manage our accounts, our contacts, our leads and inquiries through a CRM system. So we're able to track where our leads come from in terms of geography or from what country or from, what type of, are they coming directly to us? Are they coming through real estate? Are they coming through other influencers? So we're able to track that. I should say that one of the mega trends that you talk about in site selection and the location decision process is regional economic development, where they do look at regions. It's not just one municipality. They look at what's the supply chain, what's the workforce that I'll be able to draw from. And that's certainly the model of Quinte Economic Development, where you think if a business comes to one community, someone in another community may get a job there, or a supplier may make a supply chain connection. Maybe that's an electrician, or someone else gets some work at that local industry. So it is certainly regional in terms of how companies look at where they're going to locate, and that's the model we follow at Quinte Economic Development. We do direct connections with our business and industry. Again, evidence-based decision making. Our strategies are based on the partners' inputs from businesses and the community. We recently completed a detailed technology study, a technology adoption study in manufacturing and the implications on the manufacturing workforce. And that's kind of created a lot of good ideas and actions for us with input from our manufacturers. And we just last year completed a technology study as well, looking at the tech sector in the region. We do have an emerging technology cluster that is growing, and think of a lot of those small companies that may be here from a quality of life, quality of place perspective, where their business can be anywhere, but they choose this region from a quality of life perspective. So we're trying to bring that group together and nurture them along. And I'll talk a little bit about one of the strategies we're doing to make that happen. So I talked about workforce and how that's regional in nature. I pulled some stats just for the presentation. And this is based on Stats Canada 2016. This price changed a little bit, but that's the latest they have available. This is workforce patterns. Place of residence versus place of work. So this is specifically for Brighton. Where do people in Brighton that have jobs work, and what community? So no surprise, 26.7% of them work in Brighton, 28% work in Quinte West, 18.9% in Belleville. So that's that regional nature, and that's the pull of the whole region providing jobs for people within the municipalities that we represent. So again, 47% of your workers work in Quinte West and Belleville. And so I think that shows the strong relations. 16.1 work in the remainder of Northumberland County. So I mean, so Port Hope, Cobourg, and the rest. And then another 10.3% work elsewhere. So maybe they're going to Toronto or elsewhere. And I should say that number is probably going to grow, and we suspect we're going to see a lot more opportunities for remote work. We're going to attract workers to Brighton that may be working remotely, and we're looking at some strategies along that as we go forward too. So that target market study we completed at the end of 2019. we looked at where do we focus our efforts on? And no surprising, food processing, manufacturing, and logistics. We'd have a lot of warehouse distribution here. One of the newer sectors we've added, again, is the technology sector. Cannabis is certainly one with Loyalist College and the work they're doing around cannabis. And I know Brighton's seen some opportunities in the cannabis sector too. And then business services. So think about engineering, architectural type firms that we see some more opportunities to attract those to the region. So those are where we're focusing our efforts on. Again, that's both in terms of retention and support. So there's other businesses, of course, other sectors, but there's other groups looking after that. Doug at the Bay Quinte Regional Marketing Board looking after the tourism. And at the municipal level, Ben covers all the other sectors too, in addition to the ones we're targeting. So some of our activities, we'll do direct outreach to companies. When we were able to travel to Toronto or elsewhere, we do sector trade shows. So getting in front of those decision makers, we always say you got to fish where the fish are. So if those business decision makers are at a trade show, we want to be there to talk to them. We've done in the past the Restaurants Canada show where a lot of food processors attend through our partnership at Ontario East Economic Development. And we had folks like Lori Boychuk from Mrs. B's Chocolate would join us in the booth to help promote their products. But for us, selfishly, we want to attract more people to come and talk to us. So it's a win-win where that she was able to, generate some sales opportunities, and we were able to attract more people to our booth. And it was a great partnership. Our influencers, so think about corporate real estate, the provincial and federal investment officials, site selectors are all folks that we try to stay in touch with. And a lot of our leads come from that sector. So we're working with them. We just did a series of webinars to various consulates, Canadian consulates around the world. And we're able to update them on our region and the opportunities. And we always talk about not only the sectors we're targeting, but specific opportunities. And certainly the Brighton Industrial Park is one that we always showcase as opportunities for future investment. And then web and social media and some earned media. Recently, Grapevine magazine just did a whole feature on our Proudly Made in Bay Quinte program. They did a multiple page spread. So they talked about all those local companies. And then obviously responding to the leads. And then on the retention side, we have our Mike in our Manufacturing Resource Center. So he's our go-to guy for industry. So if they have a question, a concern, or not, a challenge or an opportunity they need help with, Mike's the guy they'll help them through that. Finding funds. He's helped companies access over $50 million in funding to date. Corporate visitation program. So again, talking to our industry about what's going on. We've had training rebates through our Elevate Plus program for manufacturers that invest in their people. We also provide all the administrative support for the Quinte Manufacturing Association. So a network for manufacturers to get together, share best practices and ideas and work together collaboratively. So we provide all the administrative support for that. We're on the steering committee. And we also work to establish a Quinte Technology Association. So there's a new QTA, which again is a forum for technology companies to network. We've identified over 80 tech companies in the region, and we're trying to nurture those companies and develop that sector. We see some real good opportunities there. Do plant tours, members need help. There's a manufacturing conference in partnership with Northumberland and the Peterborough region that we're involved with as well. So a lot of activities. These are just a sample of that. This is I just show you some examples of some of the social media and other stuff we've done. So, promotion of, say, Mrs. B's around, I guess, last Easter, and Saucy Dottie's, Mike was at the opening of that. You see here when Brighton first launched the industrial park, we did a lot of promotion to, raise the awareness of, hey, we got this great industrial park in Brighton, and let all the folks know that there's opportunities there. And Rosia is certainly one that we like to work with and support. And we recently did a story. We have a writer that develops content for us, not only for our website, but we do stories and profiles. And we did it on the Rosia and Mrs. B's up in the industrial parks and Saucy Dottie's, and talked about the three women that are there working together on making their products. But that's when I think about manufacturing, a lot of people think of the big manufacturers. There's a lot of great small companies like this that are doing amazing things. And this was an article that went on in Quinte, and then a second version of it, slightly different, went on our website as well. So again, promoting those opportunities and those businesses. And that's part of our Proudly Made in Quinte program that we recently received some additional funding from the province. They haven't announced it officially yet, but there'll be an announcement on that to help us blow that out some more. So you'll see more options there. As I talked about, we have our resource center, the Manufacturing Association, and the Technology Association. Great resources, and we're glad to be the support of that. And because we're behind it, we don't have to charge membership fees, or those associations don't charge membership fees. So if you're a manufacturer or a technology company in our region, you're able to be part of that network and get the benefits from it. I talked about, we did those technology sector profiles and the technology adoption in the manufacturing studies, and certainly we can make those available. Anyone wants to see those. Elevate Plus is a program that we administer. We apply and get the funding from the province, over $1 million every year to make this happen. And it helps prepare people to work in the manufacturing or food processing sector. And this is an example of it. So we train people typically with barriers, so they might be on social assistance or others, to get them job ready. And a lot of our industry are looking for people, and this program gets them ready with a 3-week in class, 2-week job trial, another week in class. And when they're done, they all get a full-time permanent job. And we deliver those in Quinte West typically. We tried one in Northumberland at the Ontario Agri-Food Venture Center, but certainly folks from Brighton have been part of this and have received jobs as part of it as well. Our new piece of this is we also have some dollars to support the incumbent workforce in manufacturing. So if people want to train their workers that are already working there, we're able to provide some free training to make that happen as well. And it works really well. It really transforms lives. And it's, again, for those people that just haven't found a footing in the workforce, but they want to get involved, this is a program that gets them there. The Metcalf Foundation this year did a report about training that works. And they identified, and they looked at all across North America, but they identified Elevate Plus as one of the better programs. So this is a program that we access the money for, and then we partner with Loyalist College to deliver it, and it really makes a difference. So I encourage everyone, if you know someone that's struggling and say, hey, I can't get into the workforce, I don't know where the jobs are, I'm not sure what to do, let us know, and we'd be glad to help them on that. We also have a program we started for military families. So if you're a spouse of a military member, there's some training in the finance sector that we're able to deliver. Obviously, COVID is kind of putting a damper on that right now. And then the college has some around cannabis as well. So yeah, so there's lots of training opportunities to get people job ready. And that's one of the key issues that we find a lot of our businesses are facing is lack of people or can't access people. So that's kind of just a quick highlight of some of the things we've been working on. And I guess I'd end up by saying that we're your economic development office. So we answer to our board, but we're providing a service to our municipalities. So Quinte West, Belleville, and of course Brighton. So we don't want to duplicate efforts. We're trying to enhance and add value, and we feel it's a great partnership. And we're so thrilled when Brighton last year brought on Ben to lead the program in Brighton. We needed some hands-on resources. Quinte West and Belleville have resources within their municipalities, and it's great to see that Brighton has those on-the-ground resources to help us. So when a lead comes in, you got a competent person like Ben to make it, to bring it home. So it works really well. And again, this committee, I think this is a great idea to have a local committee where you get lots of input and ideas from others. But I'd say our doors are open. If anyone wants to talk to me about anything specific, I'd be glad to get into that. If you see an opportunity, let me know. And I'd also say, everyone has contacts and connections outside the region. If you know of a business within our target sectors, you think, hey, they'd be great for Brighton, let us know. We'd be glad to chase them down and talk to them and tell them why they should maybe come to our region. So just a kind of, I always want to reinforce that there's opportunities there. So I'll leave it there and certainly open up to questions if that's okay with you, Madam Chairman.
Yeah, actually I have one, Chris. I'm just wondering, in your experience in sort of steering businesses to one of the 3 locations or more so that they would make a selection, what are the impediments, I suppose, if somebody were to come to Brighton? What would be what would stop them from settling, and what would you consider to be the strengths of the Brighton Industrial Park as well?
Yep. Yeah. Good question. And I think you used the term steering them to one of the
Yeah.
municipalities. We don't steer them to any of the municipalities. We want to get them to the region. So we'll present the opportunities in Brighton, in Quinte West, and in Belleville, and say, here's 3 great options for you. Which one suits you the best? So we don't steer. Just want to make that clear. We want to make sure we present all the options. But in terms of obstacles in Brighton, there's a couple. So I talked about food processing. Depending on the type of food processing you're going after, a lot of them are heavy water and sewer users, and there's some limitations within Brighton in terms of, if there's a really heavy water or sewer user, there could be some restrictions there. Sometimes logistics plays a challenge. I remember one time we were showing the Brighton Industrial Park, and we were leaving the park, heading back to look at, say we're going to Quinte West next. And, we're stuck behind a transport truck. We're going through town. We're going across the tracks and all that kind of stuff. And they said, is this the route I got to take to get, in and out of the Brighton Industrial Park? And if they were a heavy truck, then that could have been a bit of barrier. But for a lot of businesses, it makes great sense. There's a lot of opportunities there. And I think you've seen that over the last, year and a half or so with the really heavy increase in the amount of inquiries and purchases of land in the Brighton Park.
Would the workforce be an issue, the available, like if you had a manufacturing company that needed a ton of employees, would that would be an issue here? Or would they draw from the region?
Every community that like Belleville, Quinte West, Brighton, workforce is an issue. Yeah. And it's not just our region, it's not Ontario, it's not Canada, it's North America or even beyond that. So workforce is one of the key things that everyone's concerned and worried about. And that's why Elevate Plus makes sense while we're trying to get more people into the workforce to get them job ready. And the flip side of that is that's why that technology adoption report for the manufacturing sector is important as well. So as they can't, find people to fill all those low skill manual jobs, how can you apply technology to replace those and not to, take people out of the workforce, but to redeploy them into higher functioning activities within the business.
So what would you consider to be possibly the greatest strength that we have in our industrial park here?
Yeah, I think there's you have a park that has some nice sized lots for smaller businesses. So, I've had quite cases where someone wants an acre or two, and Quinte West and Belleville say, no, we'll sell you 5 acres, but we don't have, with our current configuration right now, we can't come up with a 1 acre parcel for you. So Brighton has some really good smaller lot sizes that fit a lot of the needs of businesses. That says you can't sell from an empty shelf, and I think that's when we did that target market study, that was one of the recommendations from the study was if you don't have land, you can't get the deal, right? So Brighton's been really successful in selling off land, and there's still more to go. But I think it's always good to have that vision of, okay, what's next? How do we go from there, and where's the next opportunity? And that was the same for Quinte West and for Belleville as well. That they need to keep moving and looking forward because it takes a while to develop land and make that happen.
Right. Okay. So are there other questions?
Madam Chair, I do have a question. It's Paul Walsh.
Paul.
Chris, you mentioned the food and beverage sector. I just want to emphasize how important it is that we maintain that as a strong option for Brighton for a lot of reasons. I mean, it was kind of a town that historically did a lot of food and beverage processing, but also if you take a look at the region as a whole, we have a high participation rate in that sector. And food and beverage is one of those industries that can function on a short run production cycle that might be suitable to a smaller municipality like ourselves. And so I think that we have to strongly keep that as an open option. I realize there are some concerns about impacts on our lagoon and that sort of thing, but there are things we can do about that. We can do pre-treatment through site plan control agreements at the Planning Act stage of approvals. And we have a sewer use bylaw that we can manage for any significant discharges, that sort of thing. So, we have a way of managing those issues. And we're currently looking at our capacities that way as well. So it's one of with my local economic development training anyway, that needs to be actually a priority. It's a high value added sector. And for distance shipping, we need high value added products to really reach out from Brighton to beyond our boundaries with a product. So I'd like to keep that
I agree.
not within our radar, but within our focus, in fact. So I just needed to make that comment there.
Yeah, and I think, with COVID-19, I think, the trend is going to be, instead of these massive plants that feed the whole country or service all of North America, you're going to see more smaller regional plants. I think the consumer is looking for that, and I think as companies look to diversify and reduce risk, you'll see more companies that say, hey, yeah, we want to have several smaller plants now versus one big one or two big ones, and the kind of reversing the trend that we've seen over the last 15, 20 years or more.
Well, I use a local example. In fact, the old Nestle plant in Trenton, I'm not even sure what it's called now, but
yeah,
when it closed down, they left behind about 25 staff, and they call it their test kitchen. And so you had a very small group working with their marketers out of wherever, Toronto, and they just did test products. Well, today they're back up to 350 people. So I just think that's a really good local example of why maybe we should stay very focused on food and beverage. It's one example only, I realize, but it's an inspiring one.
Sure is.
That's great. Thanks, Paul. Anyone else? Questions for Chris?
I do. Excuse me, I do, Libby, if I can ask. Connectivity, Chris, I know you spoke about, trying to bring people here and maybe working remotely. We seem to have an issue here. And I know that with the mayor and the county and our provincial and federal partners, we're looking at hopefully improving that. How does that work with QEDC and working with Brighton? I know you're kind of a different county than we are, but do we get support that way from you as well?
Yeah, well, certainly we feel we're part of the team. So, we're a resource, we're providing service. So yeah, we want to provide support to Brighton. We provide the support to those businesses and those target sectors in Brighton. So those food processors and others in the industrial park. We try to stay in touch with your manufacturers and keep up to date on what's happening. So yeah, if there's programs and resources, we're always trying to make the connections and bring folks up to speed on what that's all about. And I think you talked, was it productivity? Is that what you said at the start?
No, internet issues, connectivity.
Oh, connectivity. Sorry, pardon me.
That's okay.
Yeah, so I didn't answer your question at all. Yeah, that's a huge issue. And I think, if there's anything QDC can do to support that, I know, so Northumberland County is working on some county-wide initiatives. We'd be glad to lend any support we can for that. I think going forward, you're going to see lots more opportunities to attract remote workers, and that's going to add value to your community. So someone that lives in Brighton that may be working remotely in Toronto or elsewhere that just needs to go in, and we're seeing some of that now. But to make that happen, you need to have good connectivity and the ability to make that happen. So yeah, Councillor Rowley, I think that's a key issue, and it's one that all our municipalities are facing. And I think it's great that the Northumberland County is digging in a little deeper. I know there's some Eastern Ontario initiatives on that as well, and they're fitting into that. So let me know how we can help, and we'd be glad to lend our resources any way we can.
Thanks for that, Chris. I do have one more question, Libby, if I'm allowed.
Yes, of course.
The Elevate Plus program, is that a free program for those individuals who want to participate, or is there a cost involved? I'm not 100% clear on that program.
Yeah, and I kind of limited for time, so I skipped through it fairly quickly, but it is free for the individual to participate. And a lot of the candidates, they say, they might be on social assistance or have other barriers. And we surround them with wraparound services. So what are some of the typical barriers that we face? Food insecurity, housing, daycare, transportation. So we bring in those other agencies that can help them with that, and we block and try to take those barriers away from them to allow them to focus on the training. So the training's free, but there's also partners that help with the wraparound services to make that happen. And we even have a small stipend. So if folks have some additional issues, like we've had cases where, someone just, they don't have food in the fridge, and we were able to support them with, getting some groceries to help them through it, or there's maybe some food at the training that we've done. Transportation too. So it's not, hey, your ride didn't show up and you can't come. It's take a taxi. We're going to pay for it when it gets there. Just get to the training. And, after, doing that for 3 weeks and then a 2-week job trial and another week of back in class to wrap it up, their confidence goes through the roof, and they start to learn how to have not only a plan A, but a plan B and a plan C to make it happen. So the training's free, and there's additional supports for them. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Questions for Chris?
I do. I have a question, Chris. Thanks. Good presentation. I think we've done a very good job in the past couple of years with the industrial park. We brought it back to life, got some work done, and things have moved along very well. So, like you say, there was 1 acre, 2 acre. It's a slow process, but it's moving along, and we may be running out of some land for anything substantial. And so to focus on that, and it takes a lot of time. And is there land available? Like, what land is available for anything of any magnitude, or even anything smaller? My thing is about the community being. I hate to use the expression because people don't like it. It's a senior community. There's a fair number of people that do not work. They're retirees, that type of thing. So the workforce might be limited, but I think our community needs more services. And I've said this as far as commercial. We like to see the downtown prosper again. I think it's having its struggles because of COVID and a number of other things. But even before that, I'm very happy with the town. It's a beautiful downtown. But it'd be nice to have those other services, and that's why I thought of the hotel. You know how I'm big on that. That just to try to stimulate that part of the what I'm driving at. People want to see another restaurant. We have some great little restaurants, and they all seem to be working real hard through all this. But in a better time, I'm not talking about right now to throw a nice big new restaurant in there. I'm talking about everything is about 2 years out. Like you say, it takes time. We need to sort of get that momentum going. So in 2 years, 3 years from now, we see these things landing on the street, and our population is getting at that. We're becoming we've got the county sitting on the bottom of us. We've got Coburg on one side, and Quinte West is booming on the other. So we've got everything going for us because we're the nice community for community lifestyle. But I think we need more services. So none of that is sort of in your, I guess it is there, but it's, I know that's mainly for Ben and us to focus on. But first of all, you need land, you need opportunities. We're going to be talking about brownfields here shortly, but you need opportunities of where are you going to put this, and where can we attract and say, hey, there's a piece of land to go put your business right there, and we've got the people that'll support it. There's certainly money here. We need to, as far as economic money, where we just need to draw it out of their pockets a little bit here. So, and again, I go back to a person asked me the other day, what part of your population, 11,000, whatever, are retirees, are not working, say full time? A lot of even retirees work, and they do it for many reasons, and they have home businesses and all those sort of things. We haven't even got into all that, but so I'll cut it off there and just say, where are we with being able to stimulate more services rather than just health services? We're big on health services, but I'm just saying, and that's important to our type of community, but where can we get into that groove?
Yeah. Good. I guess it comes down to investment readiness. So just as Brighton made that investment in their industrial park, because that's what industry we're looking for. I think Brighton and their strategy around they talk about Brownfield and others. It helps with your investment readiness, whether it's commercial or other sectors that you're trying to attract in the downtown or elsewhere. And I know you are very successful in attracting retirees, but I think there's an opportunity going forward to attract more families and working age people as they leave the city. And I think, that's going to create some unique opportunities as well, where you get the people in their high spend years when they're raising their families, and that will, so it's, everything's kind of integrated together. And so, yeah, the Brownfield, those programs you're looking at, I encourage you to do that. And just like I encourage you to always keep your industrial park and the future growth of that in mind, think about, okay, what if we want to stimulate the downtown or others, what other programs do we need to have or put in place to make that happen? So it all goes together. You're right. I typically don't get involved in, say, a retail business per se, but there's some overlap. So think about what Lori Boychuk's doing. Well, she's a manufacturer, but she's also providing retail, or Rosia, or there's kind of there's overlap there. So there's some synergies, but we don't want to duplicate the efforts that the local municipality is doing as well. We want to enhance that. So those are some ongoing discussions we could have of how do we kind of add value to the specific opportunities that you want to see in Brighton.
Kind of to Ron's point, this might be a question that already has an answer. But again, I'm very new to this. So I was just wondering if there are commissions similar to the Quinte Economic Development Commission for kind of what like Ron is talking about, tourism and services and stuff like that we can point ourselves towards.
Yeah, so, well, for tourism, you're members of the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board. So just as we have our focus, Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board's focus is on the tourism sector. So attracting tourists to come to the region. So I think they're going to be part of your, your economic development ecosystem. They're part of it, just as we are as well. There's other examples of regional economic development, and commissions out there. Peterborough, think about Peterborough Economic Development covers the city and the county. Peterborough County and Peterborough City work together. There's some others out there as well. But Quinte Economic Development is fairly unique, but it also gets a lot of attention in terms of how we do cooperate. It is a great example of municipalities working together on economic development. And that's why it makes sense for certain sectors. So if I started getting like heavily in the retail side, well, then how much time am I spending in Belleville retail and Quinte West retail? And so that's why we kind of have those roles and responsibility where we're going to focus on these sectors and support you if we can on the others. And there's just maybe more heavy role on the retail side for the municipality than for QDC. But that being said, if you see a role or some value that we could bring to some of your strategies, we're open for discussion.
And do you guys ever work in tandem with the Quinte Tourism? Like, do you ever like tag team something to kind of,
Yeah, absolutely. So they put out their Bay Quinte Regional Marketing Guidebook, their tourist book. And so this next one coming up, they're doing a whole feature on manufacturing in the region and locally made products. So celebrating the, Rosia or the Hawkins cheesies or the Reed's Dairy or, all those products that are made in the region. So yeah, there's some, there's no, even though we have our own, it doesn't just one ends and the other moves, takes over. There's a blend of action. So we try to, again, keep in communication. So Ben and I and the municipalities and other stakeholders in economic development, we meet on a fairly, every 3 weeks or so via Zoom to talk about issues and opportunities. So to try, again, enhance versus create any duplication.
Okay.
And the other tourism resource is the Regional Tourism Organization 11. I know that like Belleville, Quinte West, you're in RTO 9. Brighton is actually in RTO 11. So I don't know, and I could probably direct this to Ben, if there's any, are you on their board or do you have any liaison with them as well? Because we're fortunate in the sense that geographically we're included in RTO 9. But we're also we are legitimately in RTO 11. So Ben, do you work with them at all?
Yeah, we're 8, Libby. We're 8.
We're 8. Sorry.
Actually 8.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I typically don't. Again, it's we try to follow that, stay in your lane. So again, I'm not trying to mow Doug's lawn at the Bay Quinte Regional Marketing Board. That's his role, and so I typically don't get involved heavily on the tourism side, although we try to stay aware of what's happening in there. But again, we have as I talked about at the start, economic development is a full spectrum of activities, right? We have one slice of that, which we think is an important slice. We talked about those value added or wealth creating sectors, and that's kind of where we're focusing the efforts on.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions from anyone?
Just one final one. I just was curious, speaking of the sectors that, you guys heavily kind of focus on, do you find that kind of sort of after you've found investors for these things, that these sort of, what's the word you used? Wealth
generating.
Wealth generating industries. Do you actually find that they really do, even if they're come from a ways, like they're not originally from the Quinte West region, do you find that they really do reinvest back into the community beyond just job creation?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a program called Analyst, which has a lot of good labor market data, and you could look at specific sectors, and it talks about the multiplier effect in terms of sales and wages and those types of things in the community. Manufacturing typically has a 3.25 multiplier. So every dollar of output in manufacturing creates 3.25 in total value. So a manufacturer, you make your things, but you're buying, local services, whether it's an electrician or a plumber or office supplies. People, there's jobs being created, and so there's a whole kind of spin-off effect that happens when manufacturing, or any business for that matter, but manufacturing in particular, because you're making something here and you're selling it outside the region, and you're bringing those net new dollars into your community. So if you have $1 in your pocket and you spend it at the local restaurant and buy coffee, that's kind of part of the economy. That's circulating dollars you already have. Manufacturing will bring net new dollars in and then get circulated. So it's all, and they're all important. And so, yeah, they all work.
What did you say the name of that program was?
It's called Analyst.
How do I spell that?
ANALYST.
ANALIST.
Okay. I could send Ben the link to it. So I
would love that.
And Ben, you could find out. So the province has the seats so that you can apply to the province and you get access. So I get access to this for the month of January. So yeah, I could send Ben that information. He probably already knows, but I could also run some reports for you. So if you want to look at what's going on in your economy, Analysts will help. And if you want, I do have one slide here. I could just show you very quickly.
Sure.
And I don't want to take up too much time, but let me just show you this one slide real quick that I pulled out from Analyst. If you can see this or not.
Yep.
So this is the output, economic output of all at the sectors at the 2 digits, so not broken down heavily, but it shows a dollar output of what they contribute. So think of GDP, as it were, but just for Brighton. So from all the different, whether it's agriculture or manufacturing, you can see what's happening there. And then the orange piece is the wages. So this is just an example of one types of stat that we could pull out for Brighton, and you could see what's happening in your economy. So if you're interested, I can run some numbers and share them.
I would love that. I just think that's a really interesting tool for like all business owners, industrial and otherwise, to have, so that it gives you a sense of security, right?
Yeah, well, it provides you at least some information at a point in time of what's happening in your economy.
Yep.
Just a comment, Madam Chair, if I may. I think the indirect and residual multiplier effects of a first expenditure and its impacts on a small town might be different when it's in comparison to the same measurements on a regional level. I think if you look at some of the more clinical assessments of these things at a fine grain level like Brighton, we find there's too many leakages outside of Brighton. Mm-hmm. So I would just offer some caution that it's probably closer to 0 than 1 for every dollar of the initial expenditure. That's just some of the case studies I've I'm familiar with. So we have a lot of, don't have a food wholesaler here. We don't have, any major wholesalers per se. Those first expenditures, there's a lot of taxation that goes to senior levels of government. There's savings rates that typically go to the major banks, things like that. So we see that money flow out of Brighton more so than stay here and recirculate too much. So I think just a note of caution when we look at the economic benefit of firm formation and things like that, we better just take it at face value, and we're probably more accurate in doing so. That a job is a job, and assuming that there's going to be 3 more jobs because of it would be probably an error. That's just the case studies that I've reviewed, but it's important because there's some communities that have really made that slip. It's just my own experience and views.
What case studies have you looked at, Paul?
Well, I did some local economic development studies in my undergrad. I actually worked with a professor at the University of Waterloo for a 3rd-year project, and we looked at the local economic impact of sport pickerel fishing in the Quinte region. Mm-hmm. And it was really geared up to a court case where the MNR had canceled commercial fishing licenses and wanted to have a kind of business case going to court because the province was being sued by the commercial licensed operators. So that's where I got some of my hands-on experience looking at some of the results of that economic impact. Some community level stuff, kind of like that, the Elevate Plus program. There's some case studies in how we can do economic development and social development concurrently and things like that. But I think there's been some different, different studies in different journals after that. The Journal of Local Economic Development is a useful one. I think probably some articles come across there. Talked earlier about retirees coming into Brighton. I think there's a really good study out of one of the regional planning professors in Simon Fraser University that said that for every early retiree that a small community attracts, it's equivalent to 1 industrial job. So I think that's probably not a bad strategy perhaps. They bring all their old dollars with them, and so that's just some of the. Just go through the journals, and you'll probably find it. It's not an underreported issue.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Any other comments? Questions for Chris?
If I can make one. Oh, I'm not.
Sharon.
I just want to quickly say thanks, Chris, for bringing up the analyst program. I did take the course, and I have run some of the data through that program. It's an OMAFRA product, I think, and it's very valuable. I mean, they're bringing in solid data from reliable government sources. It will tell us a lot, but Paul really hit the nail on the head when he said that data needs to be taken with your street smarts. You kind of have to know what's going on in your community so that when the program throws data at you, you can actually weigh it and see, does this make sense for what we're really seeing here in Brighton? So there's a lot of, I'm just going to use the term street smarts. You need to know your community, and you need to be able to weigh that data in light of what's happening there.
Absolutely. I think any analytics should always be taken with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right. I may send you some questions though, Chris, now that I know you have access till the end of January.
Good.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Chris, thanks very much for bringing an overview and answering our questions and so on. It's appreciated. Every now and then we need a reminder of how hard you are working for us, and we know you are, and our officials that are working with you on that team. So thank you very much for coming this morning.
My pleasure. Glad to come anytime. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll move on then to the next item of business, which is the Brownfield CIP process. We'll have a discussion on that. So we were all sent 2 reports, CIP reports, one from the city of Brockville and one from City of Guelph on their CIP. So before we get everybody's thoughts on these reports, we are fortunate to have this morning to receive information from Paul, who is the Director of Planning, and the CAO, Bob Castleman, who can bring us expertise and some comments on the Brockville one as well. So maybe I'm not sure how this is going to work, who's speaking first, but thank you both for commenting on this for us, and then we'll get into a general discussion on what we were sent.
Morning, gang. Maybe I'll kick it off. I'm Bob Castleman, the new CAO for Brighton. I thought that Paul and I would do a bit of a tag team. I'll ask Paul to turn his mind to the actual process of putting a CIP in place and the steps associated with that. And I thought I would start off the conversation by talking about some of the experiences that I've had over the course of the last 35 years or so, dealing with not only brownfield CIPs, but downtown CIPs also. So let's talk about brownfields. We're in the economic development business. Part of our role as a group is to make sure that we have a prosperous community and a sustainable community. Unfortunately, we have identified 5, 6, 10 different properties that are contaminated within our community. And as such, they're not attracting any development. So we may be getting minimal tax dollars from those properties. So there's some gaps within our community that we want to try and fill. And I'll talk a little bit specifically about the Max property on the corner of our downtown. It's been languishing for a number of years, no real activity. Our goal is to get some activity on that property. And so the concept of the Brownfield program is to get it investment ready and to provide an incentive to have developers come forward and turn a brownfield into a greenfield so that they can get on with the normal development at hand. So that's sort of the concept. And what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is a bit of a tax lesson. Within our community, our taxes are split between the county, the education, and the municipal sector. So the incentive program that we're going to bring forward, it will be comprised of the municipal sector of the tax bill only. There are or were some provisions within the Education Act that allowed for a deferral of taxation for the educational component for 2 to 3 years. And from the county perspective, I'm not sure what partnership we've had in that regard or what their flexibility is to adopt a brownfield program or not. So that's certainly, as we develop the program, we'll have some ongoing discussions with the county in that regard. So let me talk to you a little bit about some programs that I'm familiar with and some of the incentives that we put in place. Typically, a brownfield program is comprised of the incremental taxes associated with development on a brownfield being rebated to the developer for a period of up to 10 years or the value of the remediation that is resultant from the development. So my experience is typically for the first 5 years, we're looking at 100% rebate of the municipal portion of the taxes. And then for the latter 5 years, it's typically scaled back. I think our intention is to bring forward a draft CIP to this group, have you take a look at the incentives that we put in place and make some decisions and bring forward a recommendation for council's consideration, hopefully in the first quarter of 2021. Very familiar with the program. I know that Paul also has some experience with the program. No need, in my view, to bring anybody in from the outside to create a program for us. There's many examples that are out there, certainly in Brockville and Kingston, a number of different municipalities that both Chris and I and Paul are all familiar with. So that's a little bit about the Brownfield program. I know that Chris had spoken a little bit about downtown program also. So that's another community improvement plan that you can establish for your downtown. And that might be an interesting discussion for this group to try and understand and identify what needs that we have from a downtown perspective. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Within our downtown core, we may want to incent developers to come in and put affordable housing within our community in the downtown core. We may be looking at some upper level retail redevelopment, whatever that happens to be. We've got more than one story in the downtown core. We may want to turn our mind to that. We may want to provide some incentives to bring a hotel or a motel into our downtown core. That's certainly something that's on the radar and we may want to turn our mind to. So I think that there's a couple different programs, certainly one dealing with brownfields, one dealing with downtown. And I know that Chris and I have in the past talked about even creating a community improvement plan for our industrial lands. And we ran into, I think, a few roadblocks in that regard. We'd certainly love to do that, but from a legislative standpoint, I think we're going to run into some impediments in that regard. So I'm going to stop there. It's a pretty detailed program, and in due course, we're going to bring it back with a couple different samples and a couple different options for your consideration, and then we'll get moving forward with the program. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul, and he can talk to you a little bit about the process of establishing a CIP and official plan amendments and policies and all that sort of good stuff.
Madam Chair of the committee, Bob, you did a great job of capturing the landscape there. In terms of process, a community improvement plan is something that gets issued under Section 28 of the Planning Act. Municipal Act generally prohibits any kind of incentives or bonusing, but Section 28 is recognized as an exception to that. So we'll rely on Section 28 of the Planning Act, and it involves firstly the municipality adopting official plan policies, establishing the basis under which community improvement plan might be undertaken or accepted. In that policy framework, it's public consultation and engagement component to it. And so should be some discussion paper and draft policies made available for that public consultation stage of the project. Council would then consider adopting an amendment to its official plan to bring in community improvement plan policies. Within that, we would identify the geography that would be eligible for any kind of subsequent community improvement projects. So we'll have an actual map designating where those lands would be eligible for community improvement projects. And then subsequent to that, there can be a community improvement project bylaw. The bylaw would then implement those specific projects, and that's where we begin to look at what kind of budget dollars would be assigned to them, what kind of programming would be assigned to them, as Bob has described. And then persons would then make application to that program and be allocated the required funding for the purposes of, for example, brownfields for perhaps doing the record of site condition, or actually doing some of the soil reclamation and bringing about the site to a suitable condition to move from a former industrial property to something that can be used for residential purposes. Well, that would be an example of a common incentive under a brownfield program or project. We would need to collaborate, as Bob alluded to, with the other partners that we have in the tax framework, school boards in the county level, under the Act of Municipal Act and Planning Act. There's opportunities for those respective bodies to join in and provide an equal level of incentive, so we can approach those bodies and see how much acceptance or participation they want in those programs. And
copies. Brownfield. I sent them Brownfield before Christmas.
So we need to make sure that as we go forward, that there is
yesterday
some adherence to the Planning Act. It isn't an appealable policy, and into my experience, there's, generally a very positive thing, and you don't see appeals, but some comments I've received in the past is that, hey, you're incentivizing a targeted area. Why aren't you incentivizing the whole municipality, for example? So the council will have to be clear in what it articulates through its strategic planning and statement of priorities, where it wants to go, and maybe things can be phased to other areas for other programs later, but we'll need to make sure that we communicate well in terms of what council priorities might be. So brownfields will be best targeted, in my view, for those areas that are conversion of land use from industrial to residential. That's where there's the biggest roadblocks to seeing that development happen. So together with some of the other areas that Ben has identified, we can prioritize within that. And so that's generally the process. Are there any questions?
I have a question. The two reports that were sent, one of them, excuse me, had a component in there for consultation, community consultation. So I was just wondering, sometimes that sort of thing can get in the way of good process, or sometimes it can actually gather some great information. So what are your comments on that, Paul or Bob? Is that something that you plan to include in Brighton CIP, or is that something that you're not considering?
These things are processes under the Planning Act, and as such, they public notice and therefore consultation is mandatory. So that will happen. And to your point, sometimes these processes are very beneficial. We receive very insightful comments. So I think, on average, that it does the benefiting process to engage the public. And the trick is try and engage it early, so that persons who might initially have concerns from what they don't understand about the program, they have an opportunity to advance their learning curve and dispel their concerns or fears about a program that maybe they didn't understand. So I think it's important to try and get that initial consultation done as early as possible. Yeah.
And from your experience as well, are there any particular components of a CIP that you find there's more uptake on, or it's more valuable to the developers or the property owners than others?
No, most of the experience I had doing CIPs for my member municipalities, my former workplace, was more focused on the downtown incentives, improved signage, facade improvement, that sort of thing. And there was some debate and concern by some other business persons who weren't part of the downtown that was the designated project area, that it should have been maybe expand beyond that immediate boundaries. So those are the kind of issues we might anticipate.
So just so I understand this, are you considering putting in a downtown component to the Brownfield CIP, or is that a separate thing completely, or how are you managing that?
Two separate items.
Okay, all right, okay, good.
So then that's a great
Sure.
segue for my question, if I may.
Yeah.
I heard Bob allude to the fact that I know there are downtown CIP opportunities, but also brownfield opportunities. Is there an opportunity for that funding to be used in tandem on the same project?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
I've certainly done that in other municipalities.
Okay, and then my second question, when you talk about a brownfield CIP, yesterday Ben sent us 5 sites that have been identified, and we know there are potentially more in our community. So I'm assuming that a brownfield CIP would cover all sites, and then they would be addressed as potential applicants become known? Is that
Yeah, well, I think Paul had alluded to the fact that we're going to create a map that we're going to attach to the brownfield policy, which is going to identify those known sites And obviously, once they've been identified, they have the opportunity to come forward, the existing owners, and that becomes a marketing play for us to try and attract new incentive or investors to the community for those particular properties.
Thank you, Bob.
I have a question to follow up on that. Property owners. So you, in a perfect world, you'll be able to reach out to these property owners and we'll be able to easily deal with them to make all this happen. Because I understand it's very difficult on some of these properties to even locate these owners and get them to communicate with us. And that's been the problem in the past as well. So part of the reason why things have dragged on, to use an expression that's not fair to everybody, is because of exactly that. I'll use an example. It's known as the Cooey property. That will come up every time you talk to community about these things. It's a beautiful, it's a great property for a number of things, even housing, industrial, whatever. But dealing with that owner or dealing with whoever owns it, how do you move ahead, Bob, on these things if we don't have some control over?
Well, Ron, to be fair, I'm not up to speed on that particular property, but certainly the first step is to contact the owner and talk to him about what his plans or her plans are with respect to the property, and have the reality check that it is a brownfield, and we're here to assist him and have a tool to assist him in either redeveloping it himself or herself, and or assist them in converting it from a brownfield to a greenfield so that they can sell it.
But again, in some cases, they're just sitting on it. And this happens in other communities too. You can look just down the road. Owners and numbered companies or whatever are sitting on property. It might be inventoried as being worth $50 million, but it's worthless at the moment. And it's on their books, though, as property that's of value. It's a value to our community and to the municipality and to the people here and some of these are excellent locations for some of the things that we would like to see. And housing being probably the number one thing that most people are talking about. But that's what's stalling the process. So the process needs to be, yes, try to contact the owner or whoever that is and get that communication going. But where do we have authority, or where does the province or somebody can go in and say, hey, it's time now to make that decision on how that's going to happen? I don't think there's not a lot of companies. It's happening. You can see some good things happening down the road again, where it's a site that's been sitting there for years, and so it's the purchaser that's finally is going to say, okay, we'll go in and we'll remediate it because we want to put that housing there. We want to whatever. But a lot of these owners aren't going to spend the kind of money you're talking about to do it. So the municipality is sitting there with great ideas and great plans and all this, but not being able to have any leverage to get things done. Get it done.
Madam Chair, I'm just going to jump in here. So the reality is that the first item is to contact the existing owner. And part of our job in economic development also is to connect the dots and connect our network. And if we can find prospective purchasers for that particular property, we can get the two parties together, and we can play a side role by providing an incentive for them to work out a deal.
I was hoping the mayor would jump in here. Thank you.
If I may, Madam Chair, and thank you for your service and the service of the members of your committee to the community. I haven't had a chance to say that, so there it is. There's a lot of history with that Cooey property and with some of our other brownfields, as Councillor Anderson and Councillor Rowley are well aware. Most of the community is well aware. But let's keep in mind that primarily the Cooeys, when they have been contacted by the municipality and or the province, it has been either for, can you not hear me?
week.
Is that any better?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, I'll try again. So primarily when the CUIs have been contacted by the province or the municipality, it's either been to collect taxes, of which more taxes are owed on that property than the property may be worth today, or to enforce and get remediation done. And CUIs, my understanding is, are just about as out of money as anybody gets. So there's no way they're going to be able to remediate those lands. And I think that's why we need to get this community improvement program moving on those properties, specifically the CUI property, so that someone new can come in and be incented to remediate those lands and develop them. So we won't see the CUIs, the current landowners, remediate those lands for sale, but we can incent somebody new to do that. And that's the purpose of this program.
As long as they'll give up that land, Mayor, as long as a deal can be made as far as transferring the ownership of that land.
My understanding is that anecdotally, the current landowner would give up that land if someone would come along and do something with it. But too many people will look at it and go, well, it's not worth the value of purchasing the land when we have to spend so much time remediating it, and then we have to pay these industrial taxes on it at the same time. So this is a good I can't wait to get this program moving forward, not just on that property, but on a few others in the community, so we can actually see these vacant lands that are, quite frankly, obvious in the community. It's not like this is sitting in some woodlot way north of Codrington. You know, we've got a couple right downtown, and too long have we sat around scratching our heads wondering what to do. And now we have a CAO who continues to call himself the new CAO, even though his tenure is longer than some. Anyway, just fill in some background space. It's not that the CUIs don't want to do anything or don't want to give up the property. It's that there's been no incentive for them to do that, and no one has come along who's willing to make the investment that's necessary. So it's good that we're trying to find ways to encourage those kinds of investments.
Oh, I guess one of the things that we would do, one of the roles that the municipality would take on, is sort of a broker a deal, if, you know, to work with them, work with the property owner and work with perhaps a new investor to facilitate that. If it didn't happen organically in the first instance, then we could, you know, we could do that. So I guess it involves also working with realtors and property developers as well.
I had a question, actually. Libby, was that a question?
No, not really.
Okay. I did have a question about, you know, we're talking a lot about investors, and I think obviously the insinuation is that these are people from outside coming in and bringing money into Brighton, which is awesome. But I want to know, is there a possibility for, like, maybe the municipality itself to, like, reinvest in maybe one of these properties to, I don't know how a lot of this stuff works. Again, I'm very new to this. I'm extremely young. So I'm just curious to know if there's, like, a possibility for, like, maybe you know, you're saying the CUIs can't get rid of this property fast enough, right? And it's like, what if, I don't know, somebody from some kind of governmental organization stepped in for the betterment of Brighton because they love and care about Brighton, you know, rather than just sitting on our hands and waiting for, you know, hopefully some guy with lots of money from Toronto to come in and scoop it up.
I can quickly speak to that as well, Madam Chair. Brighton has looked at potentially, this is a long time ago, so excuse my memory. But when I was first elected to council, we've often looked at the CUI property for different ways, Megan, specifically, but and I think I should be careful as well, because it was probably all discussed in camera, but it won't come as a surprise to discover that if the municipality took it on, the liability of having that contaminated land exists. And because, of course, we're a level of government, we're not a private landowner. We
Right.
then couldn't just sit on that land. The province would then step in and say, welcome to the world of remediation, Municipality of Brighton. You now own land that's contaminated, and here's your order to clean it up.
Right.
Whereas the CUIs have been issued that order and they've done nothing with it. And the province doesn't have the teeth to go after a private landowner, but can very easily come after a small municipal or any municipality. But as you can appreciate, the taxpayer might not be too willing to invest in a vacant industrial land for remediation purposes. But then the land itself may have very little
Right.
value at the end of the day. So better for us to create an incentive program. We'll likely have to write off the WACA taxes at the end of the day that are owing on those lands. That, from a cash flow perspective, probably a good idea anyway, because but we will have to repay monies to different levels of government. Lots of moving parts with this piece of
Right.
property.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure. Yeah. And just kind of a follow up to what I had said. This is kind of to Bob and Paul. Do you think that when it comes to CIPs, is there any priority given in terms of again, money is great, but it's only great if it keeps going, right? It's not good if it's only good for 15, 20 years, right? So is there any priority given to people or project runners that are interested in very long-term in Brighton kind of, I don't want to say grassroots because that's not what it is, but people who care about the sustainability of the town? I mean, I don't want to give everybody my life story, but I am born and raised from Oshawa, and Oshawa is a pretty sad story of how industry comes in and invests and the whole thing collapses in on itself, and you've got a husk now and livelihoods are just gone. So I would hate to see that happen to Brighton. I just want to know if there's a possibility that, we're not just going to jump on those trains.
So I'll just share with you some of my experiences, both with the CIP downtown and CIP Brownfield. There's a cost associated with providing these programs, and it's a budget cost. So each and every year, council has to turn their mind to, are they going to support this program on a go-forward basis? So as an example, in a Brownfield program, and I'm hearkening back to my Brockfield days, we budgeted about $250,000 a year to support that program on an annual basis. So there is a budget impact, and council needs to turn their mind to that on an annual basis. But they balance that each and every time with the economic activity that's resultant from moving from a brownfield to a greenfield.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking about Ron's comment as well about how you motivate people to actually become a part of this program. I guess of the communication piece of it and making it public that this program is available will create more of an awareness. So once we get one developed and a success story, really, then it may lead to more. Does that happen typically? I guess, Bob?
Libby, my experience is communication is the key to success, and this is one more tool in the toolbox from an economic development perspective to get things going in our downtown or redevelopment of the brownfield site. So I think communication is critical, whether it's with the real estate community, the DBIA, the chamber, the local heavy hitters as we get to know them. We want to stir activity within our community, so we can only do that by chatting.
Yeah, and I mean it will be a big launch at the time. We'll make a big deal out of it, and hopefully we can generate some interest in that. And it's exciting that it's going to be. I didn't realize until today that it would be downtown as well. I mean, it's needed, and it will be a shot in the arm. I think, Megan, would you agree? You got your.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm unmuted now. I absolutely agree. I'm super, I think Brighton's just got the best downtown, and it's got a really pretty dedicated community that loves the town, and people outside the community, just from what I experience at my own business. It's a great town, and I would just hate to see that spoiled for a paycheck.
I'll just give you an example, Libby, if I may, from Napanee. Not sure how many of you are familiar with Gibbard Furniture, but it was a 100-plus-year-old furniture manufacturer in downtown Napanee for, and in about 2006, the company or the family decided to close up shop and sell off the assets, but they continued to own the building. And it was identified as some contamination. And in about 2012, 2013, the municipality decided to figure out, because they're in a lot different situation than Brighton. They had about 6 just in their downtown alone, Brownfield sites. And eventually the Dornicamp construction folks in about 2019 identified the Gibbard property as an opportunity to create high-end condos upper floor and high-end commercial opportunities on the ground floor. One problem to that was there was some certain levels of contamination because of, developing furniture for 100 years, different chemicals used. So the incentives kicked in, and there was also some complications because the Napanee River runs directly behind it. So Ministry of Natural Resources, there's a lot of red tape there. But Dornicamp Construction had prior experience with it, developing the S&R building in Kingston, which is now where Milestones is, and they fully redeveloped that into some high-end office space and things like that. So if you develop it, they will come. It might take 6 or 7 years. That's the reality. But these local developers, the Dornicamps, are out of Odessa, and they're traveling 10 minutes down Highway 2 to redevelop Gibbard. So who knows what's out there in Quinte West or Belleville or Cobourg or directly in Brighton that would hop on the incentive program once they know what's out there. And now it's going to be about 100 units of new living in your downtown, and that's just going to do wonders for those local businesses once we get through this crisis.
Sorry, Ben. Sorry to jump in or cut you off. You had mentioned last time about, I forget the word you used, but it was like a guy with a lot, or a girl, whatever. I say guy as like a gender neutral term, who has a lot of money and just really cares about the community and comes, what was the word you used last meeting for that?
Was it an angel investor?
Champion is kind of...
A champion, that was it, a champion. So you had mentioned, just when you brought up Napanee, that there was a champion in Napanee and he really cared. I don't know if this is the same project.
No, different building actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about that champion enticed him to Napanee and to invest in Napanee? Because I think that's an ideal kind of candidate, right? And I feel like there's got to be some of them in Brighton, because there's so many unique and interesting people that cottage here, that have retired here, whatever. Where do we find, how do we lure them out to care?
This guy had a cottage just south of town, and he had to drive by through the downtown, and he was sick of sitting at the stoplight and watching this green ugly siding. The green monster is what he ended up calling it. And before you know it, he peeled back the siding off the building and repointed the brick, the beautiful red brick. And the building is what it is now. It's at the center of at Center Street in Dundas. It's an optician store, as well as another artisan store, and a children's clothing store. It's really done wonders. And he put the elevator in and built the high-end apartments above it. So
So do you think maybe we could we should write about it like locally to try to drum up interest for like a person like that to come up?
Well, and that would be part of the communications piece,
Yeah.
wouldn't it? Communication
Yeah.
strategy. Yeah.
Okay.
And you will find those investors, people that have extreme loyalty and some connection to Brighton. They're out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I know they are.
they're already here. It just takes that positive promotion to kickstart their wallets, I guess is the best way to say it. But
Yeah.
they're definitely here already, 100%.
Sherry, did you have a
I
comment?
was just going to say that if we put in place a Brownfield CIP that supports our local people who may already be interested in these high value properties,
Mhm.
there's a very good chance that there'll be a competition to get them. I think that, there's a shortage of development lands inside of the municipality, especially in developers that might be interested if they could get the financial support to get their money back out of it once they do it. So I think it all works together. I think the CIP will generate interest.
Yeah. So Ron, did you have maybe a final comment and we'll move on? We're
Question
fine.
and a comment. A comment, we could put signs on all those properties with get that color green and do the signs in that ugly green on all those properties. And the other thing, what would the incentive be? What would the incentive be for, what are we talking here? Bob?
Bob's gone.
Bob's gone? Somebody?
Oh, there.
The incentive is the municipal portion of the incremental taxes. So let's say pre-development taxes generated are $10 and post-development taxes generated are $110. So the difference between pre and post is $100, and we would rebate that $100 over a period of time up to 10 years. And that $100 over a 10-year period would be used to offset the rehabilitation cost associated with moving the property from a brownfield to a greenfield.
Great. So
That's typically the way it works.
So Megan, there's a bit of a carrot to go with the marketing of these properties.
Mm.
Like a local developer or somebody like that, if you want local, a local developer may find that incentive once they do their analysis worthy of moving, and those people have the passion for the community too. So we have some excellent developers here with passion for the community, and so put those three things together.
I feel like that needs to be a prerequisite. You have to be passionate about the community, or else we don't want you.
You've made a great point, and that's shopping local, right?
And it's just about the sustainability of the community. If the person doesn't feel passionate about the community, 50 years down the line, if their business goes belly up, they're not going to care because they don't love us, right? If they love us, they'll be here forever.
So on that note,
we might love them too.
Yeah.
I'll let you move on, Madam Chair, but just on that note, a reminder that the Coolies were Brightonians, right? So investment is important regardless. And although I agree, Megan, having a local investment, social investment community is of equal importance.
I mean, the Cooey's ran out of money, right? So it's not a hating Brighton thing. It's being not having the means to look after your assets.
Ran out of money, but before they managed to do that, vacated to California. So there's that.
Yeah, that's more of a personal. It sounds like it might be a little bit of a them issue, but.
So if there are any other points or any other questions on the CIP program, perhaps we should move on to the next items. Any other questions or any other points anyone wanted to make?
Just one last question. It's not going to be a big one. If this is something like we talked about in our last meeting, something we want to maybe focus on as one of the primary objectives for this new committee, what's kind of our next step between this meeting and the next one with this? Should we be thinking about things? Should we be maybe coming up with I don't know, plans.
Ben,
It's,
is there anything with
it's,
regards to the CIP that you would want this committee to do in the interim, or will you be passing on documents for us to comment on, that sort of thing?
so I'm going to jump in here, Madam Chair. The only thing that I'd like the committee to turn their mind to, because they have the local knowledge, is identification of any other sites that they may or may not be aware of. That would certainly be helpful. The challenge for Paul and I is prioritization of 58 other projects, and we know this is important, and it's part of our strategic plan. So we've committed to bringing forward a program in the first little bit of 2021. So whether it gets to the next meeting or the following meeting, I'm not really sure at this point in time, but first step is to identify the other properties that may or may not be within the community.
The other thing is that between myself and Bob and Paul, we're going to put together a draft here in the not too distant future and come up with the incentive program itself. And that draft will be circulated to the committee, and the committee will have an opportunity to provide comment. Will that be done by the first week in February? I don't know. Probably not. I'm thinking more like first week of March, but that'll certainly be something that we'll have to shoot for, and then a report to council, and then, you know, by early spring, we're really getting moving on the creation of the program.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to know if we should be doing anything.
Okay, well, thanks very much. It's great food for thought. The next two items are DBIA report and Chamber of Commerce report. We thought that it would be useful to have these two organizations report just briefly on your activities, noting now that we're in lockdown again, and pandemic times haven't really changed. If anything, they've got worse. So, you know, it's not going to be your usual report, but if we could start with Megan with the DBIA, just
so actually, this is very embarrassing. I actually missed the last meeting. I'm usually pretty diligent about getting to the meetings, but I had a scheduling conflict. It seemed pretty standard. We had a couple things to talk about. We did Santa in the Park, as everybody knows. Which it seems like it actually went really well following COVID protocols and everything. We actually planned it that way. Apparently there was like about 120 kids that showed up. So that was nice to be able to do that. And aside from pretty standard business, Casey Lane improvement plan was talked about, which I'm bummed that I missed because I really care about that alleyway. And the DBIA approved that. You know, the support of that project, from my understanding, which is again very exciting. Obviously, I'm pro that because I like art. Oh, sorry. And there's a new job for our administrator. The job posting for that is being put out. We need a new administrator.
For the DBIA?
Like administration assistant, yeah.
Okay.
Gina McGill is our, I guess, incumbent, but you don't vote for them, right? So yeah, we're making moves to replace Gina.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Megan. And Sherry, what's happening with the chamber?
Yeah. Thank you very much for asking us what we're up to. I love to share. Many of you may have noticed toward the end of last year, we were finally able to complete our Business Achievement Awards. We normally hold them in the spring, and we actually had just finished our judging, and we were about to launch when all things hit the fan. So we weren't able to do it, and we delayed it until October, and then we were able to make everything out to the public by the end of November. So I'm very excited that we did eventually get to recognize the businesses that won their awards last year, And I'm also very excited to tell you that we're launching into 2021 next week. So next week, you're going to see nomination forms come out. I'm asking all of you to be thinking about businesses that you think might be worthy of an award. That's how we begin that process. Once we get all the nominations in, businesses are contacted. If they wish to continue in the process, they complete an application. And our hope is that judging will be completed and we'll be presenting awards by the end of May this year. The decision has been made that we will do it virtually again. That was actually pretty well received. We got a lot of good comments back. The winners were thrilled. Like it's one of those exciting things that we get to celebrate, and I'm very happy to be part of that process. So Business Achievement Awards is our next focus. We also applied, I might have applied in October, but it might have been November, for a grant through the Bay of Quinte Marketing Board, and we were successful in that application. So this is an exciting piece of marketing collateral for the tourism sector in Brighton. The Bay of Quinte Marketing Board is providing core funding so that we can develop a complete map of our municipality. And so the one side of the map will be a map of the entire municipality, and then flip side is blow up of the downtown core and highlights of some of our historical sites, buildings, homes, so that people can come to our community and in a COVID-friendly way do a self-guided tour of our historical buildings. And so we're lifting a lot of that material from what used to be the Brighton bus tour. A lot of that stuff was already pulled together. As soon as we were approved for the funding, I reached out to Fletch at Brighton Digital Archives. They're well on board with us. They're gonna help us identify, because we can't put all of our sites, obviously. We have to pick the top 12 probably that will appear on the map. If anybody has anything that they want to give feedback on that, please send me your ideas and your preferences. No guarantees because I'm working with a group, okay? But Brighton Digital Archives is going to help us to identify and give language to that tour. I'm excited about it, you can tell. When I received the quote from our cartographer, the funding is a little short. So we have a proposal into the municipality for some support on that product. So I've spoken with Ben. I think we have wheels moving forward on that one. It'll be a hard copy map that we hope to digitize and possibly do a phase 2 or 3 of what we're going to do with that map. So this is just an initial idea of how we can promote tourism in Brighton and highlight the historical significant sites that we have. Okay, that's number 2. I'll talk quick. Brighton Crammy Marketplace launched late last fall. This is an online marketplace available only to businesses that operate in Brighton and Crammy. It's meant to be a collaborative effort. So if businesses want to use this marketplace, they can either use it just strictly as a marketing tool. So I'm on there, I'm being seen as being part of the Brighton Crammy business community, and I have e-commerce capabilities. So my description of it is kind of like Amazon meets Shopify. So you have your own store on the site. You have a digital store that you control. You decide how you're going to manage that store, but you're in a group with all of the other businesses that are on there. So what happened initially with COVID was we were trying to find a way that we could serve the business community that didn't, as Chris King said earlier, didn't duplicate what other people are doing. No one else was doing this for us. And so the chamber decided to take that on and develop the site. It's now there. We need more shops on that site. We've tried to make it completely affordable for businesses. If, you know, shift your marketing dollars, become part of the community and support a marketplace that belongs to us. That's our goal. The fourth thing I want to bring to your attention would be the COVID Recovery Task Force. Early in the pandemic, the Chambers of Commerce in Northumberland County were putting our heads together going, what do we do? What do we do? How do we make this? And then we realized that the dollars are all either at the county, provincial, or federal level. And so we wanted to make sure, again, that there was no duplication of services at any level of government. So we reached out to the county and asked them to spearhead it because we thought that was the best place to coordinate those efforts. And as a result of that, the County Recovery Task Force was formed. They initially formed 6 individual sector groups to identify what was important to those sectors. And out of that process, which lasted about 4 months, I think, came the 3 recommendations that I believe County Council has now approved. And that would be the development of a broadband strategy. So to your point earlier, Emily, about connectivity, that's number 1. We realize that there are pockets of, like, I'm surprised I haven't had an unstable connection yet this morning because I live in the hills of Castleton, and some places up here, it's really difficult to even check your email.
You're the only one up, that's why.
Maybe they're all sleeping still. That's right. They're all out milking their cows, Ben. Anyway, so digital broadband strategy for the county at this point, my understanding is it's a 36-month plan to get 90% of the county at 50. Excuse my internet ignorance, but it's to get you a good connectivity that will allow you to watch Netflix if you want to, or work from home, which is exactly what we're finding. We're finding a lot of people migrating out of the city already. They want to work here. That's the number 1 complaint. So broadband connectivity was identified, and to feed into that, the next 2 main goals of the Economic Development Office for Northumberland County are digital literacy, and Digital Northumberland is a support program which many of our businesses have already taken advantage of, and they continue to apply for it. So please tell your business owners everywhere that this program exists. They can access it through the Business and Entrepreneurship Center Northumberland. It's managed at the county level.
We had 10 businesses get $2,500 towards their online marketing efforts, which was really cool.
Develop a website, update a website, become e-commerce capable, whatever level that business is at, they should investigate this program and take advantage of that. It's grant money.
And we just had another 5 businesses get money for Digital Main Street as well.
So, okay, now last, the chamber, obviously we're trying to pivot. Everyone's trying to pivot. I'm calling it the COVID dance. We're trying to pivot to see how we can capture this market, or how we can keep our communities healthy and ensure that when we finally get to herd immunity with vaccination, that we still have businesses that will serve our community. But we also want to think a little bit more about the mental health of the community. So the chamber has looked at a multitude of ways that we could run events in 2021 that people could participate in a safe way that would get them out of their house, help them feel connected to the community, and also support our businesses. We brainstormed at the end of November as a board of directors what kind of things we thought would be good. I'm asking you right now, if you have any ideas for events that you think would be COVID friendly, that could be done, that would involve the community. I'm happy to hear your suggestions. I'm in the process right now of completing a business plan that will include those events. And I expect at the end of January, when my board meets, we'll get some kind of agreement on what that calendar looks like and what we might be able to do realistically, because bottom line is the chamber doesn't have a full-time staff person. I'm part-time, and I hire students through the Canada Summer Jobs Grant Program, which help to carry out some of these tasks, but obviously we rely very heavily on volunteers to do some of the work that needs to be done. Board of Directors is great about taking on tasks, but there's a limit of human resources. So if you come to me with an idea, you're probably going to be on the committee for that idea. Just, I should warn you, if you say, yeah, let's do this, and I'll run with you, but you got to run with me. Okay, so that's how that works. And the very last thing that I want to mention is that one of the students that we hired for the chamber through the Canada Summer Jobs program is actually working on a new website for us. So we expect sometime in the spring to have something up to date. Sorry for taking, if I took up too much of your time.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Sherry. That was great.
Anybody have questions?
Yes. Are there any questions on either of these reports?
You should mention that there's a new business downtown. A new business moving into downtown, right?
Is that the dental office?
Yeah, no, the pottery, sorry. Right. Did I say pot? The pottery.
That requires a license, right?
I think you did.
No, it's a pottery.
Where?
It was all over Facebook yesterday.
What?
Downtown. It's
Do you know where it's located?
Where Willow used to be.
Yes.
Or so where Willow used to be, or so we hear on Facebook. I don't think we've heard anything official.
Oh, it's not official, but it's all over the place on.
So what is it? It's like a pottery studio?
Yeah, when you go, yeah, that's the name of it. The pottery.
Okay.
So you go and you take your pot there and you bake it.
Cool.
Isn't that how you do ceramic pottery? You make your mold and you take it and you go and fire it.
There's been places like this. There were a couple in Halifax when I lived there where you make your little cup or your bowl or your plate and then you fire it and paint it yourself.
Well, it's a good news story. Anyhow, I read that it was actually they're from Coburg. They're moving the Coburg operation to Brighton. I understand.
Well, that is good news.
That's good news.
That is good news.
So in other business, Ben, do you have any update on the industrial park signage project?
Yeah, so I had a bit of a inquiry from a local manufacturer just before Christmas. They were very slow, and they were offering some support to any projects that local communities had on the go. And I figured that this sign was going to be made of steel, and they were a welding fabrication entity. And I picked up the phone and called, and they threw something together for me. But with all the materials that this project's going to need and all the time that it's going to take to design and manufacture something like this, it was almost to the price that we're going to have to pay for it anyway. So I talked to finance, and I think going through the proper procurement is what I'm going to have to do. And if this entity wants to bid on it, so be it. But I thought I was maybe going to get something there, but it didn't quite work out. But I'm in the process of halfway through writing a grant to the OMAFRA Rural Economic Development Fund. And we're hopefully going to get 50% of what the sign's going to cost. So as soon as that sign, or as soon as that grant is complete and I send it in, I'm going to start with the RFP process on the design and the production of the sign.
Oh, okay. So we'll learn more next time, maybe. The next item on the agenda is quick recovery wins. Ben, did you want to?
Yeah, I know we're almost 2 hours in here, so I won't spend too much time. But last time that we went through the lockdown and several businesses that weren't deemed to be essential were forced to only go off of online orders and curbside pickup, we did a couple things to try to re-stimulate the retail economy and the food industry. And I know hopefully this one's only a 28-day thing. And and not a 3-month thing like last time. But I just didn't know if it would be if anyone had any ideas to come up with programs or promotions that would get people thinking about continuing to observe our local businesses, even though they're closed to the public. One thing I have off the top of my head, because one of the main industries that have, and I guess to back that up, I thought about breaking it up into a little bit more sector specific. So one of the industries that is getting just hammered right now is the restaurant industry, and they're only allowed to do takeout. So I wasn't sure if we wanted to maybe come up with some sort of our version of Quintelicious or something where we're promoting a certain restaurant provider once a week and promoting some of the specials they have. It wouldn't cost a lot of money to do that. We could do it mostly online. We could plug it on our radio stuff, and it would just give that extra kick to maybe our restaurant providers, and kind of see where that goes for the rest of the month. But I'm all ears for any other suggestions. If you don't have anything off the top of your head right now, give me a call over the next couple of days and we can discuss. But I just thought it was something good for this group to think about was little recovery wins that we could help businesses with that are forced to shut down.
I think also, people are finding other ways to buy things, and they're replacing traditional retail with ordering online or going to bigger stores and so on. So I think when this lockdown is over and retail is about to open again, it would be nice to put a program together that when you go into a store, you feel valued as a customer again, and you enjoy that experience, and we'll get back into that again rather than continue ordering online, or because that's very easy to do and people are getting into that kind of groove to do it. I don't know if it could be something as simple as signage or a button or something that says we value you, thank you for coming back, that sort of thing we might be able to help with. But that's not for now. That's for when things are over, to get people out of the things that we have been forced to do as consumers. So that was my only thought on that. And I think if there are any ideas, and you're right, the time is going by, that maybe we could email you and discuss some things at the next meeting, and hopefully the climate will change by then. I do like the idea of the restaurants. And any other quick comments?
I've got a comment if I could make one. And it's just what I'm hearing from some of the shopkeepers as well. Some of them are really struggling with the applications for some of these funding programs, having applied, having them turned down, having to reapply, and not really getting any kind of hard, fast reasons as to why they've been denied.
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly what our, municipality can do for that, Ben. I'm not sure if, what support we can give some of this, but I've heard that a fair bit. And I know the restaurants are struggling. A lot of our shopkeepers are struggling. And like I say, a lot of them are really, really just struggling with this whole application, this funding program, these funding programs. And I don't know how we help them, but I think we need to kind of get some support there, show some support or whatever. I don't know if we have, maybe with those who are having to fill out applications, if we have an info Zoom meeting with some of these people.
I'm one of them. I filled out the application for the RRF twice and gotten denied both times. Yeah, I've spoken to other friends who own businesses in town, same hat. It's incredibly frustrating. And I've tried reaching out to the Northumberland Community Development, who it's going through, and they're like MIA. They're impossible to get a hold of if you're a small business. Unless you're industrial and big, they don't care. And it's incredibly frustrating.
Are they giving reasons why you're being denied?
No, I got my second time. Sorry, Emily. I got a snarky response about my balance sheets and income statements and how they weren't up to snuff because they weren't done by a professional, because I personally did them.
That's the big thing. They're not getting good reasons. I know some have reached out to, you know, our MP and maybe MPP as well. That I've suggested that, and some of these businesses owners have done that, but still with no good response as to how, you know. So like I say, Ben, I don't know if we could kind of organize a round table and get all of the partners together for these businesses who are really, you know, some of them are going to need this after this second shutdown.
Is it mostly the regional relief fund they're having the issue with?
I don't know the programs because I haven't applied for any of these things, so I don't know. But
the main one that I've heard people struggling with, Ben, was the RRRF, the 40 grand up to 30 of it only repayable. And it was like, and I'm honestly, granted, I'm taking a small sample here, but the two other people that I spoke to, the two other business owners, one of them was a very large business in town that did not qualify. And the second was about a medium-sized business that has just struggled the whole time, and nobody's getting any real answers. And honestly, it got to the point that when they released the second round, nobody wanted to apply for it because it's,
so that's federal, I believe, right, Mayor?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that'd be Philip, Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah, and I know some have reached out to him.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what help he has given. I'm not going to criticize what our MP has done. But like I said, some of these people are just like, they keep hitting a brick wall. And I'm not sure, like I say, if we can bring them together, I don't know.
Yeah, the issue kind of is, from my perspective, is that it's not an optimized system and it's a faceless one, right? So it's like, you're submitting your application. It's a very like straightforward, you get a box for like 250 characters to describe what you do and why you're important. It's just, and there's nobody there to kind of help you, like walk you through the application. And it felt to me like the avenues that were supposed to be there, like the Northumberland Economic Development Committee or whatever, were not responsive. I don't know if they're understaffed or what the dealio is, but it was not remotely helpful at
We're all
all.
working from
It was
home.
it was a colossal waste of my time.
Is it possible to organize some kind of an information session, you know, like a Zoom call with everybody? Do you know anybody that might be able to do that?
Well,
then?
it sounds like the CFDC is the one that needs to kind of take the bull by the horns here, but if they're not being responsive, I do have a couple contacts there that have been pretty solid with me. I don't know do you have anything, Mayor?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have to head into another meeting here, but Ben, if you reach out to your contacts at the Northumberland FDC, and I'll reach out to MP Lawrence, and maybe we can get them together and come as a delegation to the next ECDEV meeting.
Yes.
But certainly, I mean, it's more important, I think, that they reach out directly somehow to the DBIA and the Chambers of Commerce and let them know how their membership can access these funds seamlessly. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
It is so much. It's so much work.
I worry about timeframes and deadlines, and that some of these people who would honestly be able to qualify are going to be penalized because they've been pushed either to the back of the line or they've been refused so many times that they're getting sick of reapplying.
The time is come and gone.
Well, yeah, and like I say, I don't know the particulars,
Yeah.
but those are my concerns for some of these people downtown. That, you know, some of them are just hanging on by their toenails, and we know that. And if they're now being penalized because, like I say, their applications have been just denied for no reason, that's what I'm hearing. Some of them are not getting a good reason as to why, and maybe not being able to access all of the support systems. I would just like to see something happen that, you know, ASAP.
Some kind of dissemination of information, I think, would be like insanely helpful.
Yeah.
And just some kind of representative to walk people through a good, proper application in case any more funding comes out, because the RRF is over. All the money has been given out for Northumberland. But maybe if there's another. Sorry.
Whatever I hear from the MP, I'll provide that information to Mr. Hagerman for the committee. And
Somebody needs to be accountable. Thank you.
Other incentive programs like that that he's aware of I'll certainly communicate that. But I'll also communicate that to him that it needs to be a better process for small business owners who don't have, you know, $100,000 accounting firm in their hip pocket doing
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have to go, folks.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks.
I'll see you later. Thank you very much.
Thank you for attending. So is there any other business or any correspondence?
I
Sure.
have a question. I have a question because I felt like during that conversation, we went from RRF to small business loan. Are we, the small business loan that's available through the federal government, if I'm not mistaken, you can still apply up until the end of January for the second portion of that. That's not what you're referring to, is it, Megan?
No, I'm referring to, and not specifically the RRF, I'm referring to money that was released by FedDev to stimulate and sustain operating costs. Because that's what I was told when I went to the Northumberland, which was so absurd because I went and I thought I was a client, but because I got money from them to buy my building, I technically wasn't like a client of theirs, which was frustrating. So I got deferred to be told, you know, well, it might be easier for you to just get a loan. I don't want another loan. I need relief, right? So loans are great, sure, but what about like a relief or stimulus or something?
Okay.
Thank
you.
Yeah. Sorry, Sherry. Yeah.
No, thanks. I just wanted to be clear what it was.
I'm talking more about like I was referring less about loans and more about like grant money or relief money or government appointed funding.
I'll see what I can find out as well.
Thanks. Yeah. I guess there isn't any correspondence. Okay. Let's set another meeting date. Ben, did you have a date in mind or?
Well, if we wanted to stick with the first Thursday in February, first Thursday of every month, that would bring us to the 4th of February. I was thinking, given where our conversation just landed regarding funding supports, I don't know how this changes things, but I was thinking of bringing Doug Stevenson in from Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board for next meeting to do sort of what Chris did today. And that seems to stimulate a lot of discussion. But if we would rather go the route of someone talking more about funding options, then maybe we can prolong Doug till March or April. I don't know.
Bring in somebody
can I make a comment?
That Northumberland group that you were talking about, Megan. Go right to the heart. Or Mr. Phillips. Or Mr. Lawrence.
Or we can bring them in both in and have separate sort of items for both.
I think that, I mean, this meeting went on today because we had two really big issues, and one was QEDC and the other CIP, of course. I think it would be great to have Doug in for the next meeting. I think if we can find out any information about the grant process or the loan process, it might be better to direct it out through email than to have somebody come and speak to this small group.
Yeah.
You know,
just some kind of like information package. Yeah.
So rather than take up time at this level, because there's so many more people that would be, you know, would want to hear this information than just this committee. So if we could do that, if we could ask Doug if he could join us from a tourism perspective and give us what his organization does and how we can work with him. I think that would be great. And in the meantime, if there's any information about these grants or the how-tos or, you know, any sort of direction to make this process simpler, that would be great. That would be great.
Okay.
Can I make a comment on that just before we? Sometimes getting everything through email can still be misconstrued. I would maybe suggest, Ben, that if you can pull these people together, that you just advertise an information night and not necessarily through the ECDEV committee or through the DBIA or through the chamber, but, you know, maybe have it being hosted by the municipality and those who are interested. We don't all need to be there. Right. I don't need to apply for anything, but Megan does. And there are probably more people that if we could, and if that happens within the next 2 weeks, I'm doubtful. But if that would happen within the next 2 weeks or the 3 weeks,
Or even a month?
or even a month, whenever.
That
I
would
mean,
be
I would hate to see it go past the deadline though, Megan, that you once again are penalized because your application isn't falling within the guidelines.
Yeah, well, like I said, the RRF funding is gone, so that's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah,
So-
but Ben also mentioned something, small business loans or something for the
Yeah.
month, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
something could be pulled together. It doesn't necessarily need to be hosted by any committee, but those who are interested could participate in a Zoom meeting like this, and they could get answers from the horse's mouth. Like I say, sometimes email conversations can be still misunderstood or misconstrued, and I would much rather see, if we can't do face-to-face, but if this is the best we can do, I would really like to see something move forward. Not just for DBIA, but Sherry, you probably have members of your chamber who are concerned. We have people in the industrial park. I don't know who are all struggling, but I think everybody who needs help needs to get it today rather than February or March.
And if something can be arranged, then Ben could put it out through the website, through social media and that sort of thing. And
Right, yeah,
there's any uptake.
those who want to participate,
Yeah.
have an interest, can participate once he can pull those who have the answers together.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I did want to say that I think what we've identified here is something more of an urgent need. And that's not something that we want to just leave to the next meeting. So if there's any possibility of getting those funding partners to come on a call that will help our businesses apply for the money that's available, I think that's something we don't leave to the next meeting. But I also think, we just got a grant from Bay of Quinte Marketing Board, and I think it would be good for the rest of this group to hear what they have to say and what they're doing with their funding. So
Yeah, and it's also it's not just how to apply, it's what else to apply for. There can't just be the one. Like there's got to be other things. Yeah, just something.
Okay, so
please.
we'll leave that to Ben to see what he can come up with, and hopefully we'll be able to present something, or the municipality will, to help business. So we have the next meeting date set at February the 4th at 8 a.m. And I guess the next item would be to adjourn the meeting. I would need a mover and a seconder, please.
I'll move.
Megan, second.
sure.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your participation this morning. This is a great lot of information that we received, and a lot to think about. So look forward to the next meeting, and everybody stay safe.
Yeah, you as well, Libby.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Chris, all of us.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye, everyone.
Chris.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
Are you still there?
Yes, thanks everyone. Bye.